evening. This is Neil, KL7 Hotel, Quebec Romeo, control net operator for the River City Arcs SSTV Net for this evening. This net serves for training and practice on the image transmission modes and meets Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Pacific time on the N6NA repeater at 441.30 MHz. River City Arcs members and any licensed radio amateur operators are welcome to participate. If you wish to join the net or need to make a call at any time, please announce your call sign between transmissions, and the net control will acknowledge you. If an emergency should arise and you need a repeater, please contact net control for saying break. A double break, as always, signifies emergency traffic. The net will stand by for you until the emergency is terminated or the traffic is moved to another frequency. Patients who wish to check are asked to respond with their full call signs using the recognized ITU phonetic alphabet and their name. I will recognize each station after when they call before continuing. Any station who wishes to check in on the net, please come now.
November Romeo 6 Hotel. This is Anders in Folsom.
Good evening, Anders. Glad to hear you. And anybody else? Sounds like we don't have too many people here. We may have 50 pictures from each person. Anybody else? KL7HQR for the N6NA SSTV Net. I know we have Carol, M6, KP4MD, and she is probably very busy handling the traffic with YouTube. And anybody else? We may have a very short net tonight. This is KL7HQR, and we have NR6H Anders and KP4MD Carol. We will start with you, Anders, if you would like to send a picture, and we will take a little bit of a break every time to see if somebody else shows up, like Joe or Bob. Go ahead, Anders.
Sounds good. Quiet net tonight then. I'll test for a tone here.
You have a good tone, sir.
So this will be a quick image, Robot 36.
Well, very good picture received here, Anders. I'm looking at the picture that Carol is getting on YouTube. Looks like I have a better copy that she did as far as the hits, and looks like a river. I'm going to do the comment on my side, and then we'll pass it to Carol when she's ready. A river looks like a capsule on the other side, so that it should be the Potomac River. If it is Washington, D.C. But let's see. Carol, did you have a copy?
Okay, yeah, this is KP4MD. Thank you very much. Yeah, I was fiddling here with the audio controls. And I want to say hi to Alf, KN6 Papa Romeo Delta, who has joined us on the live chat. And very interesting picture there, Anders. I wonder if you took that picture yourself there. It looks like a selfie long ago or what. It looks I could recognize the Capitol. It looks like the Capitol building in Washington D.C. And there must be I think there's some reflecting pools there around the area of the Capitol Mall down there in Washington. I don't think that's the Potomac because I don't think the Capitol building is that close to the Potomac anyway. I might be wrong, but that's my guess. So I'll turn it back to Net Control. This is KP4 Mike Delta.
Scale 7 HQI. Yeah, I agree with you with the distance. However, I'm not so sure. Usually the reflecting pool is along the mall, so maybe it's not Washington at all. Before we go back to Anders, anybody else would like to check in on the SSTV Net for tonight? This is Scale 7 HQI. Please come now. Well, apparently not. Anders, how wrong are we on this? Please clarify.
Well, you are right about the location. It is the Capitol in Washington, D.C., but it is not the river. So Carol is right that the Capitol is not by the river. This is a pool in front of a reflecting pool in front of the Capitol there. There are a few of those along the National Mall. And this image was taken about a week ago when I was there. I was in Washington, D.C. for for the reason of upgrade or renewing my Swedish passport. It shows out that was the closest Swedish embassy, or the only Swedish embassy in the U.S. Where I could get it done. So yeah, long trip for a very short 5-minute passport renewal appointment, and then all the way back home again. So this was a crazy trip of about just over 36 hours, leaving San Francisco and then coming back to San Francisco from Washington. So I took a little stroll down the National Mall, and the reason I sent this picture is not that I was there. It is, in fact, the first ever selfie that I took. So I've never ever taken a selfie. This is the first time I ever did that. So figured that having the Capitol in the background was worthy my first ever selfie. And I look a little squint-eyed there because it was a very strong wind coming down the Capitol Mall that day. It was kite flying day, so up by the monument there was kites all over the place. But nice day in Washington. Short trip coming back here, and came back Saturday, and that's the story behind this picture. NR6H, thanks for holding the net. Back to you.
Wow, that sounds very interesting. Before we go on, anybody else would like to join us on Scale 7 HQR for SSTV Net for N6NA? Well, they must be having some kind of ham radio conventions around. Nobody is around today. That was very interesting. Andres, first of all, I did not recognize you. I think it's the first time I see a picture of you that I can see. And you're a lot younger than I thought. But I have a question. I thought you're not from Switzerland, so the fact that you have a Swiss passport. Second, the embassy may be there. Are there no other Swiss consulates close by?
Sweden, not Switzerland. But yes, there is a Swedish consulate in San Francisco, and it's been there forever. Last time I renewed my passport, I did it there. But because of the extreme pressure on Swedish passports, they decided to pull back all the... they have those big machines there where you do the fingerprint and the photos and all that stuff. Those machines were pulled from all the local embassies and back to local consulates and back to the main embassy. So, in fact, the only place in the U.S. where you can renew the passport currently is Washington, D.C. and New York. So, kind of a wash which way you pick from here, but I picked Washington, D.C. because that's where I could get an appointment. And funny enough, I did actually look at going all the way back to Sweden, because if I travel that far, I could just stay on the plane for another 5 or 6 hours and be back in Sweden and do it there. But it showed out that was even worse when it came to appointments. So they are so backed up now after COVID. Everybody in Sweden apparently wants a passport and go out traveling. So all the appointments are taken all the way. The soonest appointment I could get in Sweden when the time I looked was in July. So yeah, that's the story behind that. But yeah, kind of crazy, but had to make it happen. I'm not sure what would happen actually if I let the passport expire and try to just to get a new one if I need to travel. But I figured it was not worth finding out, so better do it when I could. NR6H, back to net.
K7HQ, yes, I agree with you. You definitely, under the current circumstances, if it's taking that long to get a renewal, imagine to get a new one. I have been trying to I have a friend from Brazil visiting, and we wanted to take a cruise up to Alaska, which is stop in Canada, which normally you get a visa for Canada for Brazilians within a couple hours, maybe a day. Now it's taking 45 days if you are in the U.S., and if you try to do it from Brazil, it will be 128 days. So we gave up that idea. So I'm glad that you did go get it. And I think you just spoke too fast for my aging ears. You know, the words Swedish versus Swiss kind of got confused there. So thanks for the picture. Appreciate it. Carol, are you ready to send a picture? But before you do, anybody else would like to join us on the net tonight? This is KO7HQR for N6NA SSTV Net. Okay, looks like we have nobody else, and echoing Carol, we say thank you to KN6PRD Alf that on the YouTube with us, and we have Frank and Andrew there, W6NYK. So thanks for being there, and we have 3 people on the net and only 2 up. So somebody hasn't clicked the like button yet. Carol, back to you. Any chance you can send us a nice picture?
Yeah, certainly I can do that. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. Thank you very much, Anders, for renewing your passport. We appreciate the fact that you have a passport, that you can be here with us and share these excellent pictures, and a lot of stuff that you've taught us over these past months that you've been checking in with us here on the net. Very helpful to everything that we share here, that's for sure, and those people out there on YouTube watching us as well. And if you look closely at my picture I have up on YouTube, you can see the pattern of the pixels. You can see something that looks like these dots are tracing a diagonal line starting in the upper right and going down towards the left. I see one right near the right edge there, another one, or a few of them kind of scattered throughout the picture, but they seem to follow a pattern. They make these diagonal lines, and they're pretty regularly spaced. Now, there's a method to this madness. This is that clicking that you're hearing on our audio. It's caused by the satellite radar that's over in Beale Air Force Base. There are very few of these facilities in the world. There's one at Beale. There's another one that's over in Massachusetts. And I know there's one over in Fylingdales in England, and there are a few others around the world. And these are tracking space debris. Well, one of the other functions of them is to watch for incoming ballistic missiles. That's purportedly the major military use for these. But another side job that they have is to track the thousands and thousands of pieces of space debris to prevent major catastrophes, because these things are whizzing around at thousands of miles per hour, and they have to make sure that there's not going to be any major impacts on the International Space Station and other satellites that can be damaged by this junk out there. So until the time when they figure out a way to collect that stuff and get it out of the way so that it's not going to be a hazard to anyone, they're serving a very important function. So we don't mind having the pave pause radar up there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and send the picture, and this is also going to be PD 120. This is KP4MD.
Scale 7 HQR. We have received a picture here with very few pops in there. Thank you, Carol, for the explanation on the PFAS and the clarification. I certainly knew a little bit about it, but I certainly learned a few things from what you said. I really appreciate it. So before we send to Anders, anybody else would like to join us on the SSTV Net for tonight's Scale 7 HQR? Apparently we're it. So Anders, back to you. Did you get the picture, sir?
I did receive the picture just fine. Some pops, but nothing more or less than usual. Very clear picture of what I can see here. A couple of radios on the left. Some development is clearly going on here. It's kind of hard to see what that board is, but I do see that it looks like that blue RJ9 or RJ15 connector, DB9, DB15 on the left there. That's probably driving the monitor, maybe, if it's a DB15. And then on the right, you have a thick white cable that I can't really see what type it is, but there's some form of code on the screen, also a little too blurry for me to actually read what it says there. Could be a boot up in, maybe it says DHCP a couple of times in the beginning there, so maybe it is a boot up screen. Yeah, it's not really structured as code, so I would think it's some kind of status of something running. But yeah, I'd be very interested to hear what this is. don't recognize the board directly. It doesn't look like a Raspberry Pi, so it's probably something else. But interested to hear what that is. NR6H, back to net.
K07H2R. Anybody else trying to check in? Well, I got a picture, very good picture. However, like Anders, I am unable to read anything on the screen. Looks like on the bottom left there's the KK6 something. But going back to my way back time, the blue box underneath the notepad doesn't look exactly like my PK232, but following Carol's talk about going back to packet radio, I would assume this has something to do with her bringing her equipment back to life again. And curious to know, because I am going back to visit my son in Houston in about a month, and one of the things I intend to bring back from him, besides my amplifier, will be a PK232. So curious to know if that's what's going on. Back to you, Carol.
Okay, yeah, very good. This is Killer Papa for Mike Delta. Yes, that is a PK232. It's one of the later models. I have the original PK232 that had all of the LEDs on it were red. The newer ones had some green LEDs, and that's probably the difference that you're noticing with that. Yeah, you're seeing KK6DCT. Part of that call sign is covered up. That's Kevin's call sign. He's the president of the River City Arcs. And I took this picture off one of his web pages. And that device that's on top of the PK232, Anders was getting really, really hot with that. Really close. Yes, that's a DB50 that's plugged into that. It's just a monitor it's plugged into. And the thick cable, the white cable coming from the other side is going to a keyboard. So what this is a circuit that Kevin built, which is a dumb terminal emulator. It's called a VT132. It emulates an old big clunky hardware type of dumb terminal. He's using that. What you're seeing on the screen there is essentially the interface, which is just text. There's no it's not a graphic user interface like Windows or anything like that. It's just plain text, and that's what the emulator is presenting to you. And then he's logged into his PK232 with it through the RS232 serial port, and is communicating with it that way. Now the little box to the left of the PK232 that has this call sign on it is I believe a Rig Blaster, which is a sound card interface. You can see maybe you might see it as a hand microphone that's looks like it's plugged in possibly there into the left side of that because that particular Rig Blaster has a way of switching between the sound card going to your radio and a microphone, so you can switch between voice and digital data. And then he's got behind that, I can see a what looks like an LDG antenna tuner on the table, and then there's like this little stand over that with it looks like an Alinco HF radio, which isn't turned on, and is a smaller radio that has the green screen lit up, and that's probably the radio that he's using for his packet communications. So it's in keeping with the theme of the presentation we had yesterday. I thought it was quite interesting. It's a VT132 dumb terminal emulator. So there you go. Back to nets, KP4MD.
VT132 dumb terminal emulator. I need to get back into this thing because I used to be fairly active in packet radio way back when, I think 1990s, late in the 90s out of Houston. And it was quite interesting to go through several little notes or and be able to go around the world with some messages. It took a little bit of time, but it was kind of interesting. So I missed the meeting last night, and like Wilson said, I definitely want to go and watch that recording. So thank you, Carol. Really appreciate it. And thanks for Kevin to bring this up to date. And it looks like there are a few more fun moments to have with this. Anders, do you have any comments on it?
Well, I'm well familiar with various teletype protocols and formats. I started my computer career quite early in the computer days with the ZX80 and 81, and I think we traded some pictures about Sinclair stuff previously here. And obviously I'm using terminal type interfaces daily. Not so much serial driven anymore. They're usually IP driven, but even the good old PuTTY terminal is actually a really good terminal emulator if you need to decode or work with just UART communication back and forth, and that is something I kind of do daily in my work. Actually, I work a lot with various serial protocols like Modbus and the like. So interesting little project. I'm kind of curious why to pull it out. I mean, you could basically do the same thing with a PC, right? So to pull it out into having it as a dedicated board like this, is there a specific purpose to that, or just for fun? And R6H back to net.
Go ahead, Carol.
Kevin went into pretty much a detailed description of why he did this project. Like you say, it's kind of redundant considering the modern day hardware that we have. But it was done for the sake of nostalgia, for recreating the experience of working with one of those old hardware dumb terminals. So kind of a fun thing for nostalgia's sake. Over.
Go ahead.
Well, that certainly makes sense, and I do not blame him at all. I'm doing kind of the same thing here, although it's not going to be a terminal, but it's going to be a little smart display for my bug-out box for the radios. So I'm starting from scratch there also, although I could certainly start with something like a Raspberry or an Arduino, but I chose to go all the way down to the raw component level and put my own CPU on there and basically build the hardware from scratch and write the display drivers and everything from zero. So I totally identify with the challenge and the beauty of just knowing that you can. So that is really cool. I'll certainly make sure that to look at the presentation on YouTube here as soon as I get the time to sit in front of the TV for a little bit. And R6H back to that.
K07HQR with the N6NA SSTV Net. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how we all sometimes tend to look forward to looking back at what we could do and try to do something today that obviously would be simpler to do in other ways, but it is fun to go back and reminisce. I'm kind of looking forward to getting my equipment back. One last time, anybody else that would like to join us for the net, N6NA SSTV Net? Okay, looks like we're definitely it. I will try to send a picture now. It will be a PD-120. Well, the scale 7 HQR, we just finished sending a picture. I don't know how well you went out. Anders, NR6H, please go ahead.
So it feels like I have seen this, but my head is blocked. I can't remember where this is, but what we're looking at is a beach. We're looking at people standing on the beach, so it's clearly swimmable water temperatures. And then we have these huge concrete blocks out in the out on the beach there, out a little bit away from the sand there, out in the ocean. So I'm wondering where this is. I have a feeling that I've seen something just like it. I just can't place it. So be very interested to know what this is. NR6H, back to net.
NR6H, scale 7 HQ1 net control. Let's see. Carol, KP4MD. How about you, young lady?
Yeah, this is KP4MD. All I can say is that the quality of the picture was really good. Maybe about a couple dozen really fine pixel pops that are hard to notice from far away. A lot of people on the beach and apparently completely unfazed by the presence of these gigantic concrete blocks stuck in the water there. I honestly don't know. I have no clue what this is. I'm suspecting it's nothing around here. Maybe something in Europe. I know they had a lot of these large constructions there left over from World War II. I don't know if it has anything to do with that, but that's my guess. So back to you. This is KP4MD.
Scale 7 HQ1 net control. Thank you, Carol. Yes, I would assume that Anders would have some inkling about this. I have a visitor here, so I didn't have much time to prepare for tonight. So quick preparation for the net. I ran through some random pictures of my trips. This is the remnants of the pontoons on the beach of Arromanches in France, in Normandy. Which is very close to the gold beach of where the British landed. And I thought when I took this picture, it was very, it's not too far from Omaha either, but I thought it was very, very touching to see the remnants of such a drastically important day in our history, and such a very difficult and tragic day with so many deaths. And then see what it is today, with all the people just enjoying the beach and the families having a regular good time, and somehow it just impressed me. And I'm quite sure it rings some bell for you now, Anders. Back to you.
It does. So when I was probably 15, I think, I spent a most part of the summer in Saint-Malo, which is not far from this place, and I am quite sure I've seen this for real. It rings a bell now, and the Saint-Malo is kind of on the I believe a little bit west of this place on the northern side of Bretagne, and not far from Rennes in France there. So this should be also pretty close to Mont Saint-Michel, I think, which is a pretty amazing site. The monastery out in the water there. That was also a really, really cool place. So yeah, I knew I had seen it, just couldn't place it. Thanks for reminding. NR6H, back to net.
Roger. Any other comments, Carol? I have a question for Anders. Well, Anders, interesting you mentioned about Mont Saint-Michel. That's a place that my wife definitely wants to go and see. And we have another cruise going there at the end of the year, November. and we're going to stop at Le Havre. And so that's not so far from Mont Saint-Michel. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
Yeah, a little rusty on the geography there, but it should be not too far from there either. Yeah, the Mont Saint-Michel is a awesome old town out on a little island, kind of, peninsula, kind of from the city there. It's surrounded by a very high wall. They have an extreme difference between tide and flow. So and that's part of the amazing thing with Mont Saint-Michel is that you can only go out there when the tide is low. Otherwise, the road is covered. So you have to wait for the tide to run out, and then you can be out at the monastery for the day, and then you have to wait for the tide to go out again, so you can return to the mainland. But Mont Saint-Michel is an awesome little village, and I remember when I was there, I was 15, like I said, at 15 or 16 at the time, and I looked at all the guys standing there by, they were playing pétanque, which is the, I don't know what that is in English, but the game when you throw large metal balls on the little targets ball, but they were standing there and drinking wine and just doing that all day. And I said, that's the way I want to retire. I'm going to move here when I retire and play pétanque and drink wine. That sounds like a thing to do. Not sure if that'll happen. I have a language problem with French, obviously. I spent a lot of years in school trying to learn French, and it didn't help at all. So, that might be the barrier to move there. But very cool, good memories. Thanks for reminding. This is NR6H, back to net.
NR6HKL7HQR in the net. Thank you. Well, I tell you what, the problem is not, I had the same history as you are. Spent many years trying to learn French, and I speak it perfectly, absolutely fluently. The problem is the French, nobody understands me. So I put the blame on the other side, okay? And of course you wanted to go and retire there, but now you've been to the Sacramento area. I'm quite sure that you changed your mind. Looking at the screen here, we have N6NA apparently Kyle that joined us, and I want to say thanks for them to be there, and W6NYX Frank and Alf N6BRD. Maybe Carol has some better visibility on the screen there. And since we don't have that many participants, is there anybody else that would like to resend a picture? I have one more picture to send before we close the net.
Yeah, this is KP4MD. I think that game pétanque that Andrews was mentioning is. I've seen a game similar to that played back in New York where I grew up. Some elderly Italian men were rolling these balls down a little strip of sand and trying to get their ball to be closest to this little tiny ball. They called it bocce ball, B-O-C-C-E. But pétanque is probably the French equivalent for that. It seems to be a very popular European game. Mont Saint-Michel, I've never been there, but I've read about it, and of course it's so remarkable to find this little island with a monastery on top of what looks like a mountain in the middle of the ocean. I've always wondered how they were able to build that, since they don't have access to it 24 hours a day. I imagine that they probably shipped some of the building materials for that monastery by boat to be able to transport that stuff there. There's an awful lot of work in what they built up there on that little island. It kind of inspires me like an island like Lindisfarne in England. You've heard of Lindisfarne, which was where they built a monastery on an island out off the coast of England. to try to keep it safe and isolated. But of course, that didn't help it when it was attacked by the ancestors of the Swedes and the Norwegians later on, um, the Vikings. Anyhow, quite an interesting place, and maybe that's one place I would like to visit when I go to Europe. Back to you, Neil. This is KP4MT.
Okay, Carol, thank you very much. You know, this is the one thing about this net, is that we have such a variety of experiences, such a variety of pictures that we see. And every week I kind of shut down the radio and, I've learned something, or there's one more thing I want to do, another thing I want to try, or another place I want to go see. So it's really enjoyable. Thank you, Anders. Thank you, Carol. Anybody else that would like to join us on the net before we close? This is KL7HQR.
Comment?
Comment?
Yeah, regarding petanque, in Swedish it's called boule, which is, or I think that's also a French word, really, and it's similar to boccia. Boccia is using, I think, larger and lighter balls, but in fact, it was one of those things that I stuffed in my luggage when I moved here. So I actually have a set of those, three sets of those balls. So each player gets 3 balls, and I have 9 in total. And we've actually used that quite a few times when we're out on a beach or a sandy strip somewhere. And it's a nice game because it takes about 30 seconds for somebody to learn to play it. And then you can play it anywhere where there's a little bit of a little strip of sand, and very, very simple, very fun game to play when you're out and about like that. So yeah, that's my story about petanque. NR6H. Back to you, Neil.
Roger. Different names, but I've seen a lot. I've spent a lot of time watching it in Italy as well as in France. So really, really enjoyable. Because it's good for spectators also, because you're evaluating the skill of the players, and could I do that? And the answer is no, I couldn't. But anyway, very enjoyable evening, even though it was a short one tonight. I appreciate those that joined us on the YouTube. Carol, for your information, I will be able to cover the net next week. I will not be able to cover it after on the week after the 16th. But next week, with pleasure, I'll be here. One more time, open for comments before we close. This is KL7HQR. Roger, I would then like to thank you all to participate in tonight's SSTV Net. We hope to see you again next Wednesday at 9 o'clock Pacific time. The net is officially closed. Now we have 9:48, which wasn't one of the shortest nets that we've had in quite a long time, but it was a good one. This is Neil, Kilo Lima 7 Hotel Quebec Romeo. Now wishing you a very good evening, 70 degrees, and see you next Wednesday.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Carol. Have a fantastic night. See you next week. NR6H, back to net. Oh, sorry. NR6H signing off. That's what we're doing now. Good night, 7-3.
Good night, Anders. Have a nice evening.
Yes, 7-3, and good night to all. This is Killer Pop 4, Mike Delta, now clear.